Well, hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, and I am pleased to present Dion McCormick, no relation, who is the lead solutions engineer here at Alpha, as well as Sarah Mitchell, who is in charge of our documentation department. Today, Dion is going to be going over some stuff dealing with, I believe, the creation of APIs using a new Genie that is now in the released version. I think released version. But he's also here to answer your questions. So you can go ahead and type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Dan, I'm going to take you off mute. Are you there?
Yes, sir. How are you doing there?
I'm doing great, thanks. Let me go ahead and make you the presenter. And there you are.
There I am.
There you are.
Poor Scott. Not another one. Actually, I've heard they've been, this is just a big experiment to see about, getting information out of foreign adversaries by forcing them to watch my webinars so many hours straight, they break.
Right. Okay. What Dion's referring to is we have someone, Scott Allen, who's on our staff here, and his job is actually to watch all of Dion's webinars and put notes in. And so when you go up onto the YouTube channel, for example, you'll see you can actually do a search and look through all the episodes. So for forever, we just had the dates. But we made him go through and catalog everything. So if you're finding videos more easily, Scott is the person to thank for that. But
yes, I appreciate his work. Well, thank you, everybody. Hey, welcome. We are, man, can you imagine? July. That's just frightening.
I know, it's nuts.
June just,
yeah,
boom, was here and gone. And speaking of, just a real quick update, for those folks here in the US, next week is a holiday, so we'll be skipping the webinar next week. You can always go online. We have all these recorded ones, and now with all that information, you can find one that's interesting if you so choose. But just want to give you a heads up on that. But also wanted to say thank you very much to our friend Dave here. And also I wanted to say thank you, Sarah, for joining us. Sarah is always invaluable. She is doing a fabulous job of helping us make our documentation world-class and continually to try and catch up to the development team. It's a full-time plus job just to kind of digest how much they do and how much has been delivered. And in fact, we're going to spend a little time today showing something very exciting, very new, and something that I am super pumped about. Very, very excited about it. But thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us. We also have a question that came in via guides at Alpha Software. We're going to cover that a little bit later. So we always encourage questions. And if you have questions now or during the presentation, just run over to your GoToWebinar control panel, click questions, and then on the questions side, you can put our questions and we'll do our absolute best on how to help you on that. So today we're going to focus on, I've got all my old slides right there, but this is what I'd like to talk about today. There is an enhancement that's been made to improve our API technology, specifically to radically simplify the work and increase the speed it takes for you to wrap an API around your database, which is what a lot of people tend to do. So this demonstration today is a new feature. I believe it's pre-release, so you can obviously download it. Shouldn't be used for production, but if you want to start playing with it now, and we're doing a lot of exercising to make sure everything's rock solid before it goes full production, but you are welcome to do so. And so I'm going to dive right into that, and then I'm going to cover our client's question there, and then also Dave will be keeping an eye on the questions that are going, that hopefully we'll see come up during our presentation here. So with that, I'm jumping over into my Alpha Anywhere development environment, and I am running a new pre-release here. And what we're going to talk about is web services. Now, we did a couple presentations on web services, and there's also some free training that's available on web services. So if you want to look back through our webinars, you'll find it there. But the cool thing about web services is that it makes it very, very simple for you to take some Alpha Anywhere functional capability and wrap it into a web service to be able to publish that web service and allow other people to interact with your system in a safe and secure manner. And the general process was a twofold process. Process number one was the first thing you would need to do is create a XBasic class, because the code that's going to run under the web service needs to be inside of an XBasic class. So we showed a demonstration where we created a simple XBasic class that would call a database and return a set of customers as JSON. And in fact, when we built that class, we also we used the built-in XBasic Genie to actually write 99% of the code for us. So it wasn't that much effort to go through and do that process. But hey, that's still too much work as far as our development team considers for our clients. So there's a new enhancement that will simplify and speed up that process. And let me go ahead and demonstrate that now. So let's say you have a database, and let's say that database has any number of underlying data elements. You have different data tables and data columns in those data tables, fields, etc. And you want to be able to provide people ways to interact with that database, but you don't want to give them direct access to the database for a couple reasons. First and foremost is security. I mean, you can set different passwords to this, but maintaining it, managing it is incredibly hard. And also, who knows, you might get some malicious kind of activity because you really can't control what they're going to do once they have access to the database. So what you can do is you can wrap your database in an API and then control and provide them a interface to be able to interact with that database, but they don't have direct interaction with it. But more importantly is in the API, you can do things like auditing and security to really lock down what they can do. And this is really the modern paradigm of how people are building systems. They're really not doing database to database connectivity. They're building web APIs between systems because that promotes a very healthy way to connect in between the different ones. So the development team said, hey, we want to make it simple for our folks to do that. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click Web Services here. I'm at the Alpha Anywhere Web Projects Control Panel. I'm going to go ahead and click New here up in the left-hand corner. And you'll see we have SOAP, and then we also have definitions for REST. And so I'm going to focus on the REST. And there's two parts of it. One is to create a definition to consume a REST interface. So this is a situation where someone else has an API you want to interact with. The other one here is called create a new definition to create a new definition to create a new REST service. So I'm going to do that because I want to publish a service. Now, this screen is new. Before, you would go right through into what's called an empty service. And let me just show you that, where then you would add your class in here, you would select your class you've created, set your methods, and do other work there. And you can still do that because there are certain situations where maybe you have some back-end code or algorithms or calculations or other features you want to provide. You can do that yourself here. But now, if you happen to want to just create a REST service that works with database tables, we've done the work for you. And what's very exciting about it is we not only can do select, but we can also it can automatically create update, insert, and deletes, which is all the things you're going to want to do to allow people to insert records, delete records, update records, and get data back from the database. And the beauty of that is that Alpha is going to do all the work for you, but you have all the power of a web API to lock it down, secure it, audit, and do other things that you want to do to make a rock solid service. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the Genie to create this. So and this will be a very similar process that you've experienced before. So the first step is I'm going to go here and go select, and then I've got my different connection strings. I'm going to go ahead and pick our AA demo Northwind. And again, this could be any kind of backend database. That is an access file, but I also have a SQL Server file. I can connect to SQL SharePoint. I mean, many different capabilities. As long as you have a connection string, then we can access it from there. So I'm selecting Northwind. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now that we've done that, it's asking us, well, what table? So I'm going to keep this simple for today, and I'm just going to use the customer right there, and I'm going to click OK. And now you'll notice that it will list the different tables you have, and it's asking you, what would you like to do? Now, built into this Genie, you can create interfaces to select data, update data, insert data, delete data, and also read schema. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set the property. So you notice at this point, I really can't do anything yet. It's basically I've shown the table, but I need to set the properties. So I'm going to click there. And when I click there, it showed this capability here. So let's just do a select and an update. I'm going to leave the other ones alone for today. I want to keep it fairly straightforward just to kind of give you a taste of what we can do here. So select and update, and I click OK. So now for this table, I'm creating a select and update. Now, I could also select other tables and have multiple ones. So I don't have to go through this process for every table I want to expose to the outside world. Basically, I can select multiple ones and set what I want to do it and wrap it all into a single web service. So therefore, it's much more straightforward for you to build this kind of interface. So I'm going to go ahead and name this service. I'm just going to go Northwind Data Service. And again, this is up to you. This is your naming convention. You can do whatever you want to do there and click OK. So now Alpha is doing all the work for you. That's it. It's created a new API service here, and it's called Northwind Data Service. And we're going to go in and look at that in a few minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK, this confirmation message here. And it goes, hey, you know, I built this thing. Do you want to test it? Yeah, let's go for it. So I'm going to go ahead and click yes and test this API right here. Now, this is running locally on my local system, so I'm going to go ahead and start my server. But again, once this is up and running, I can publish this to my production server or test server or wherever, and it will run on that server environment. So this is opening up my default browser. It's created basically a test page for me in my live preview here. And this is a standard user interface. We talked about this in the last time, or in our before. There is a, if you go to OpenAPI 3, and let me just jump in here, just give you the background. This is from a company called Swagger.io. I think it's part of SmartBear, I think so. But there's a standard in the industry called OpenAPI 3.0. And that basically standardizes your documentation, how things are documented. And what's really cool about that is it creates these really neat self-made documenting pages, ways to test it. And there's a whole bunch of services that are out there that will convert, including Alpha, a OpenAPI 3.0 specification into a stub that allows you to work with it. So for instance, once you've built this, you could actually create the documentation, hand it to someone, and let's say they're a PHP shop or they're a JavaScript, node shop. They can literally take that and auto-generate code to be able to interact with your API. So it dramatically reduces the amount of effort by everybody to do it. And what's really cool about this is this becomes your contractual agreement from a interface standpoint with other people. So for instance, this is basically saying, if you want to get customers, this is how you do it. And that's essentially documentation. And then they can work off that with examples and everything else associated with it. Now, I have not set up authorization. This is not authorized, but I'll go ahead and show you how you can do that along with auditing, which is very powerful. If you consider, like, for instance, financial or HIPAA medical applications, you are required to record who's accessing the data. And so you can use the nice built-in auditing features to be able to do that. Whereas in a database, if someone goes and directly edits a database, how do you really know, unless you do something really magical or a log file, it's hard to tell what goes on. So there's a huge amount of built-in capability. And what I predict down the road is that over time, right now, most of our user interface elements connect directly to many different sources, but data tables has really been traditionally for grid and things like that. More so in the future, you'll build an API layer and then you'll build your interface on top of that API layer because it buys you a lot of capabilities off the chart. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. That's really called an API-centric design methodology. Okay, so you're probably like, hey, quit talking, show us this thing. So this is my API here. You'll notice it's called Northwind Data Service.a5svc. That's our internal there. And then if I want to click here, I can see the documents. But right here is, I have two commands that I have. One is customer select and customers update. And you'll notice it has a certain naming convention that Alpha picked. And I can go ahead and show you later how to do it. So let's go ahead and click on customer select. So you'll notice when I clicked on that, basically it's giving you the documentation. It's saying, okay, here is the body that needs to be sent to the system. Here are the responses you should anticipate here, and the response type, which is application JSON. So this basically is telling them, how do you call and run this API? And that's what's so cool. Since this is defined and standardized, someone who's running PHP can literally consume this and create a little function that knows how to call an API with the right information. Now, what's really cool too here is not only can I see the documentation, but I can click try it out. So let's go ahead and click try it out. So you'll notice up here, we go and we see we have a example model up here, and we can edit that in a moment, and then you see execute here. So let's go ahead and click execute just to show you how it works. And you'll notice that since I didn't include any values here, these are parameters. Basically, this is how you filter it. You can go down here and you can see that the moment I clicked it, I got a 200 code, which means the call was successful, meaning that this called the API returned a result. And then you can see I'm returning 91 records, and there's no page size or number. I haven't set that, but you'll notice down here, here is my data. Here's my first customer, my second customer, and it's in JSON format. So this can be consumed directly into another system. And this is industry standard stuff. Very, very cool. But if I do want to change this, I can go up here, and I haven't tried this, so bear with me. So let's say page size is 20. So let's say we want to just get page number 1. So let's give that a try. I'm going to go ahead and modify that. I'm going to click execute, and let's see what happens. There we go. You'll notice now, instead of all the records, I got page size of 20, and I got page number 1. So I'm only going to see 20 records here, but it's going to give me the total number of records, so I'll understand that information. So basically, by setting these parameters, I can change how this SQL select statement works. And basically, we're taking that and going there. Let's try this. I'm going to get crazy here, so bear with me. So we have customer ID, so I'm going to copy that there, and I'm going to go where customer ID is equal to, and this is, I'm guessing that we have to put it using standard SQL nomenclature, where customer ID equals alpha key. And let's see what happened when I do it there. And voila. Boy, I'm on fire today, man. Not really crashing and burning. It's like, it's a test pilot who doesn't, plant the hey, I didn't plant the plane into the side of a mountain today. Yay, it's always a good day. But you'll notice this just gave me that one record. So as you can see, it's super flexible. I mean, once you kind of understand this stuff, it's really easy to do. And again, those code generators will make a function, and each of these elements will be part of that function. So that's the select statement. Let's really try and see if we can keep this plane aloft. I'm going to go down here to the update customer. So I'm going to look right here. I'm going to go, okay, region is number 1. So let's get crazy with ourselves here. So we also built a feature in here, and you can see that same situation here. Here's the body that's going to be submitted, that's going to tell the API how to work, and this is the result here. So field value pairs is going to be, in this case, it's going to be region, and oh man, so let's try it out here. I'm going to go region. It's a pair. I forget, man, I wonder if I'm going to do it, but I'm going to say where customer, and let's make sure I did this right, customer ID equal to alpha key. Now, pair, I'm going to guess here, and I'm going to go region, and I'm going to go space 2. Let's give that a try, because it's a key value pair, meaning that it's a field name and a value here. I don't think that's right, but I'm going to give it a try and see what happens. Let's see what happens anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and click execute. And interesting. Okay, so this code says yes, the call to the API was successful. But notice what it did is it attempted to do the actual database, and in our case, it just gave us that information back. So my formatting is off on this key value pair right here. Actually, let's try this. Maybe it's colon, like in JSON. And again, I should read the documentation. That's why we have Sarah online. so she can yell at me. Yeah, I'm not doing it right, so I'd have to go in and look like that. But what's great is you can play with this, and you don't have to write a whole system and stuff like that. You can just kind of mess around until you get comfortable. And again, once you're good to go, you can then use this in your system or provide it. So in this case, you can provide a way for people to update your customer data and do things along those lines there. And I'm sorry, I should have known how to do the key value pair. Let me try something real quick here. Documentation.
Dion, when you go to prepare,
machine.
You know what I'm saying?
Wait, let's go to, hey, read the manual. Wasn't that one of SpaceX's boats is read the manual or something like that? By the way, they nailed that rocket this week. That was crazy. Okay. Oh, someone might be telling me, I think someone's like chatting in my ear. Yes, there we go.
Maybe try a comma.
No, it's something equals. She says, okay, thank you, Sarah.
It's Sarah.
She just said it's equals. So duh, which is what I should have tried first. Okay. So it's just field name equals that. How incredibly obvious. No wonder I didn't understand. It's too simple. I'm trying to make it there.
And it worked.
It worked. Look, false, row infected. Now I can go back up here and watch. I can execute this query, and that's going to re-execute that query and check that out. Region is 2. Is that so cool, guys? And I would have had to write all of these XBasic classes and then wrap them. I don't have to do it. And the reality is probably 80% of the time, you want to be able to give someone the ability to query data out of your database or update data in your database. And this will do all that work for you. So it's a huge, I'm just super excited. This is going to fully unlock the future of the API stuff. I think it's that.
It's one fewer port to open as well, right? For the, typically you'd have to open a port directly to your database unless you're using the API.
Oh God, yeah. And you just don't want people touching. Here's the other thing too. Next week I go, you know what? Region is now called super region.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I go edit that in the database, then anybody who's written anything against that database is broken that day. But I can go in here and I'll go in and show you this is when it built this, it also built my class. And there is my class that it built right here, SQL CRUD. Okay, that we're not being crude. It's change, read, update, delete, I think it is.
Change, okay? Read, update, delete.
So this is all the code here. So what's cool is you can go in and look how this code is written here. But what you can do is you can go down and you can add your own code in. So let's say next week you change that field name from one thing to another. Well, in this code, you could go ahead and put a little captcha saying, oh, if you see region, change it to region count. And then therefore the people who've gone out there and could be tons of people, they don't have to rewrite all their APIs. Everything just keeps working. So you're creating a level of indirection between your database and what they're doing. And you could even move it to a complete database. You could move it to a different type of database. You could do any number of things, and you never have to worry about the other person. Their API will work. Now, eventually you may want to rev the API, and you can do that. You see that a lot. So you go from like a V1 to V2 and say, hey, guess what, everybody? In 6 months, I'm going to shut off V1. So you can start getting them where you can kind of clean things back up. But in the meantime, if you have those changes, you're not exposing all that internal. It allows you to do refactoring and everything you want to do. It's just super duper duper exciting. And what's neat is it's so easy to test in here. And then once you have this, check this out. Notice it's giving you the curl command. And if you give that to any other programmer, they'll immediately be able to convert that into code or use it or anything else. I can exercise this using Postman or any one of number things. So the cool thing is it could be a test interface capability. Tons of cool stuff you can do to automate. And again, you're giving that level of indirection. Create, read, update, and delete. So pretty cool. So this is the new and improved web services capability. It is super cool. Once I've opened this, by the way, you'll notice that it's really basically using the base one, but you can say define authentication methods, define cross-domain requests, and it has a lot of all these nuances that are in it. Down here, you'll notice that we have a set of different available methods. When it created so I could even go in and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and enable some of these other methods and things like that. So generics are the underlying code, and then these are the specific for your particular database. So you can see, for instance, the selector here, there. And so what's great is you can have Alpha generate one of these web APIs and then go and see how Alpha built it. And then you can apply that same methodology to your own custom APIs as you see to go there. And so as you can see, you can look and see what the Swagger definition is. And this is what I'm calling the, actually, oh, interesting, it's the 2.0 specification, but it's basically a standard specification. This is how you basically, it's defining, notice it's got the different names, like the different paths. This is your select one. It's a post. Here's some documentation data. Here are the input parameters, etc. This is all standard Swagger stuff. But what's great is, since this is an industry standard, as I mentioned before, people can read it. They can use it for code generation, all those kind of things that are available within the system here. And guess what? If you want to create your own test page, you can just click right here, and it's going to create an A5W page here. So I'll go Northwind test page, okay? And then I'll go there, so it's in there. So now I can go in here, and here is my Northwind test page. And this will basically essentially bring up this interface using that. So that's been in there for a while, but what we wanted to do is make sure we could add that. So huge monster improvement in terms of being able to rapidly deploy your APIs quickly on your database. And again, that's going to be 80% of what people want to do. So the reality is you may never even custom code your own. You might just use this. But I do highly recommend you kind of move this direction, because, you know, let's take an example of where you've created, and it took a little while to open that up here, but you'll notice that's the script. Pretty fancy there. Oh, it's a redirect script. Interesting. It created its own little API thing. How tricky. But you know what we're finding out is that no system is an island, meaning that you can leverage up your API and increase the power, utilization, value of your system by having an API around it. Plus, once you have an API, you can unlock other people to leverage that system, meaning that they can use their own technology stacks, they can do their own front ends, their own other things like that. So APIs really unlock an enormous amount of business value in relationship to what you're doing. So definitely worthwhile. Spend some time. As you can see, the Alpha has taken this very, very seriously. A lot of engineering manpower and time has gone into go down here, to automate these things for you to make your life easier. And as always, Sarah's doing a fabulous job of scrambling to document all this new and cool information. One other thing I wanted to note, and this was in the latest pre-release here. Let's go ahead and go to my project, release notes. There's actually, just kind of give you a heads up what's been going on. The team has been working a lot on, you'll see there's fewer pre-releases, usually you see them kind of on a daily, but on this, but what has been announced and what's really cool, which one is it? Is this, wait, this must be the old. This is, by the way, documentation on how to show you what I just did. That's documentation there. Oh, maybe I have to do a Control R. Reload this because it's not showing. My refresh is not there. Yep, this is the right date. Here it is finally. Okay, right here. It did hit refresh. One of the most important things we always want to do is create a wonderful environment for our developers. And the speed and interaction with the development interface is always a critical success factor. When you're building stuff, if the system is a bit sluggish while you're doing it, it can become a frustrating exercise. So the team's been working enormously on improving the UX component builder, meaning making it faster to open a component that you already have, moving things around, deleting stuff, saving, etc. So they've really been focused on that. Essentially, I want to call it developer experience. End users will never see that from a standpoint of they'll never experience that unless they decide to become Alpha Anywhere developers, but you're going to enjoy this enormously. The one note we wanted to really make sure everybody understands is that there was an enormous amount of stuff going on under the covers. So we're probably going to see some little glitches, this and that, in the next couple of pre-releases as we hammer that out. So we want to say be very careful, just because, you know, we're really trying hard to, yeah, it touches so many different areas. There's so many things you need to do, but I'm super excited about that, because the faster you can get in, do what you need to do, and get out from building a UX and a user interface. They're also doing a whole bunch of other things under the cover that's going to unlock future enhancements and future sort of experiences for the developer. So it's been very, very hard. They're also doing the same thing with the web, the Git integration. Been working on that super, super hard, and it's going really, really well. We're very excited about. There's whole new capabilities built into that. That's maturing very, very quickly. So I want to give you a heads up. If you want to learn more about this, here are some videos that show you the whole process I show you today. But also note that as you start to see the new pre-builds, our pre-releases, and the next full production release, you're going to have a much more enjoyable experience with the user interface as you go from there. So that's kind of what I had on there. I'm going to take a moment here and see if there's any questions regarding this. I do have one other thing I wanted to dive into from one of our esteemed colleagues. So.
Excellent. Yes, there are a few questions.
Good.
Let's just start right at the beginning. The first one just has to do with the pre-release in general. We had two questions. One is, how do you get the pre-release? And the second is, if you have the pre-release and you decide, I don't want to use the pre-release, I want to go back to the older version, what's the important thing to keep in mind?
Most importantly is that if you've been editing things with that new pre-release, then I'm not sure if they're backwards compatible, because you know, again, especially with the new version with the UX component builder changing so much,
Yep.
you just have to be careful. That's why personally, you'll see in a second, I have two virtual machines. This is on a Mac, but I have AOT1, and that's where I'm running my pre-release. And then I have another one called Alpha Prime, and it looks confusing because I'm pointing here, but this is a different machine, and this different machine has got a different release of Alpha. So I never really, this is my core day-to-day one. It's my stable release per se. And this is my experimental. That way I make sure that I never step on things. Now, you can install two versions of Alpha. That's doable. The problem is like, oh, I opened a project with one and the other, and it can get confusing over time, especially given how a lot of our developers are doing multiple projects at once, or doing prototypes and other things like that. So, I mean, the other option is just put it on another machine, you know, and I know there's questions regarding licensing, and you can contact our team on that. But we want to encourage you to use pre-releases in a safe and sound manner.
Actually, the deal on licensing, because we do get that question a lot, is
Yes.
you can install them both simultaneously. You should not run into any problems with activation or otherwise.
Gotcha,
So,
gotcha.
yeah,
The only thing is if you open the same project in both of them,
at
got to
the
be a little
same
careful.
time, you're going to get
Yeah.
some issues, but you really don't do that anyway, because
Yeah,
you can
I
have issues
know.
anyway. Yeah, so bad practice. Another question that we had was about the REST Genie, the SQL CRUD operations Genie. I saw that you were pointing to a table, but does this also work with views?
That's a really good question. And you know what? What the heck? Let's try this.
Okay.
Create a new definition, expose it. Look at how fast I can do this.
Amazing.
And let's go ahead and here. Here's product sales for 95. That's a view. It's an access one, but it is a view. Obviously, remember, views have to be updatable and stuff like that. You know, so there are limitations that the database will select. And then we'll go delete me. Okay. Okay, and let's go ahead and test this here. So absolutely, you can create them against views. As far as being able to update those views, you will need to make sure the underlying database will allow you to do that. And interesting enough, there are certain views that are updatable if they're structured where there's like a single primary key, it can figure everything out from there. But if it's a more complex structure, not going to work. So let's go ahead and go down here. We'll do a try it out, execute. And there we go. Let's see scroll down. Oh, come on. Sorry, system is being a little, yep, that worked. This is my data coming back from that view. So absolutely. And same kind of thing, well, there'll be, you can set like queries against that view, where, order, all that, just, you know, within it. This is really important, this page size and page number, by the way, that's best practice. And here's the reason is that, if you go, hey, no page size, and you have a million rows in a database, it could really hammer the server and eventually time out. I mean, if it's such a long process. So I highly recommend that any of your APIs do this page size, page number, and that just is a sort of a way to reduce the amount of payload going back and forth and producing faster results. So a lot of best practices are built into how this works from that standpoint that you can play with. So great question. Thank you very much.
Cool. Couple questions in some different categories, but back to the notion of using pre-releases. The question that was asked is, can you, with Alpha Cloud, can you run multiple versions at the same time? And the answer is yes, you can. That automatically makes as many virtual machines really as you need. You can spin up. So it just, and it's, if you're just using it for testing, it probably is going to cost almost nothing to do that.
Oh, it's awesome. It is so easy to do that. You just say, oh, I want to try it out. They're very handy.
The other one had to do with a hotfix. Now we don't do these very often, but recently we did do a hotfix, and so that meant if you have a actual release version that you're running, you could use a hotfix to bring it to basically bug fix some issues in the current release version. The question from our viewer here is, but with this hotfix, do I have to install this, or is this just going to appear in the next production release? And can I just wait for the next production release if it's not bothering me, whatever?
And the answer is absolutely.
Absolutely, you can wait. It will be rolled in. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to find certain things are probably do, but yeah, it definitely is part of the core code that will be in future pre-releases and more importantly, future production releases. So you can guarantee if you see a hotfix, it's rolled into the full boat. But it's kind of a situation where you go, hey, everything's working except for this one thing. We had a hotfix a while back where we're getting a file upload issue. And so instead of taking quote unquote the risk of disrupting your current, especially if it's a production system, you want to touch it as little as possible. So the hotfix is your quick and easy way to do that.
Excellent. And we had several questions about API security. We knew that Genie will let us build an API, which will let us query our database, but what if there's some sensitive information in that database and I don't want just anyone to have access to it?
Very good point. So built into it is called authentication. So you can have what's called an authentication. Let me go ahead and do this. This is talking about the authentication methodology. And I don't have time to go through here. Maybe we'll come back and talk about it there. But basically it requires you to, you'll see almost in all web APIs, there's like you either pass in a token or a header into that. And we use the same methodology where in order for the person to use this, you can read and say, hey, wait, before I do anything else, I'm going to go look at the header and I'm going to say, do they have a parameter called like API token or whatever it happens to be? Then I'm going to take that information and compare it against my database. And then if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and let them execute the API. If I'm not okay with that, then I can reject it and give them a not allowed message so they know that it was a security violation of some kind there. And so it's definitely built into it from that standpoint. You can do that and it works really, really well. And it's very straightforward to kind of set up. And there's some example there. One thing about the authentication method, which is important for you to understand, and this is probably the one gotcha that we had, was that when you have an authentication method, I'm going to put this on pause for a second. I want to pull something up here.
Okay.
I want to show you.
Something secret, I hope.
Yeah, well, I've got other secret stuff on here, like, yeah. I'm not going to say what it is.
Well, that would be a secret you're not supposed to say. Yeah.
That's true. I have all the debate questions for tonight's debate. So it's
I have all the Jeopardy questions.
Maybe not. Okay. Let's see if I have this one. Oh, yeah, see, I don't want to show you my API key for certain things too. So that's part of the issue here.
You know what? Why don't we do another webinar?
You know what?
Where we talk all about defining authentication methods.
Yeah, because there's this one gotcha. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Let's do that because it's such an important topic, and and almost everybody's gonna want to do that. The
Yep.
trick we'll talk about is the fact that when you define your authentication method, it's only built around including one data item like API token or username and password, but they're combined into a base 64 or something like that. You can't say I've got two header parameters, password and username, and then in our authentication requires just one. But you're right, that would be good to do a little bit more of a deeper dive and go through that. So good point.
Excellent. Cool.
Yeah.
So that's it for those questions. But I know someone had written in before with a question. I
Yes,
was wondering if we're going
yes.
to get to that.
Yes. In fact, let me go ahead and jump to my other. Okay, we'll go down here to grids. Okay, so first and foremost, I know this person, and up front, I'd like to say he's a
It's all right.
troublemaker,
Oh,
and
is he? All right. That's good to know.
yeah, he's notorious, and
Yeah.
I'll call him the notorious BIG from the West Coast or something like that. So, but great question. Basically, the question is this, and I'm going to go ahead and set up a grid component here, and it has to do with conditional styling. And I'm not sure if I can get all, oops, always picking the wrong thing here. Let's go here. Okay. And I might not be able to cover all the elements to it, but I just want to lay the groundwork, and then I can follow up with this notorious individual on follow-up kind of questions here. But so I'm going to select and connect and go to database. We'll go here. And I'm basically creating a little quick grid on top of my customers table, picking on customers today. And I'll go ahead and add a few fields in here. Okay, great. There we go. And we'll say, okay, save. And we'll go conditional format customers underscore grid. Okay. So I've got a working grid here. So I'll go ahead and show you the grid. And you know what? I want to make this thing editable. So bear with me as it kind of wakes up there. Actually, you know what? This also saves a little time if I go ahead and suspend it. That way I can be working just on this because it tends to grab a lot of processor power. Okay, so here I'm using one of my new and improved styles, but I'm really going to turn this into an editable grid. And so because I really want to show the power of this capability here. So I've got an editable grid in a moment once it re-renders. Okay, so let's say I wanted to highlight some information. So there's two primary ways to do this. Way number one is called server side. So I can go onto properties here, and I can go to, actually, I can either do a conditional formatting on server side shading and dividers. So I can shade whole rows, or I can do it client side. And this is a field level question, so I'm going to dive into there. But I just wanted to let you know, we have what's called conditional style, where you can say, like, set the color of this row to be red if this parameter is X. And that can happen, and very important, either on the server side or the client side. And both are equally effective. The only thing is that client side buys you a lot of really cool capabilities because it's evaluated on the client. So let's go ahead and explore that a little bit more. So again, if I want to do a row level, I can do it at the property levels here, or I can do that at the, properties or grid level per se. But now what I'm going to do is go back to my fields here, and I'm going to click city. And you'll notice we have a conditional style. And what we can do on that is, let's see, so this is server side conditional style. So I could set my server side saying, like, let's say city, let's go ahead and do this just to show an example. So I'm going to say if city is equal to London, then I would like this to have like a background color of orange, something annoying. And you can see it gives you a little preview right there showing you what it looks like. So now when I do my working preview, and I think I have to apply it at the, because yeah, but notice what it did. It immediately highlighted those rows there. I'd have to play with it to get, there's an issue of the control itself there. But the important thing is if I go in here and change this to like, let's say the city is Toronto. Well, you'll notice that it's still orange because it is, server side, because I'm on the client now. I've disconnected from the server for all intents and purposes, so I can do that. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to remove this condition, And what I want to do is I want to go down here and I want to do conditional style under client side properties. So I'm going to add a condition here and I'm going to do the same condition. I'm going to say if city is equal to London, I'm going to make the background be orange from that standpoint there. So I'll go ahead and click OK and OK. So you're going to see we're going to have a very similar behavior if I haven't screwed it up. It's requerying the database, so it's going to come back with what's in the database. Okay, but now I'm going to go to London here. I'm going to put in Toronto. And I'm going to go out of it. Did it not evaluate? Oh my gosh, why didn't it evaluate? What did I do wrong? Let's see. Let's do it at the control both level. That's the trick. I'll come back and talk about that in a moment. So let's try this again. What's going on? It's not doing it. Must have missed a step. But the benefit of client side is that it's evaluated, it should be evaluated immediately. Let's see, city equals London, and I'm doing it at both sides. I'll have to go check out and see why that happens. But that should be changing. I again apologize, should have practiced that. We just got that request right before a meeting here. Let me go down here, let's try here. Let's see if that changes any. Unless it considers Toronto. Yeah, no, it's not. It should be evaluating and turning that back into the other color there. So let me take that on the side. I'll follow up with the actual individual, and our next presentation, I'll go back through to make sure everybody who's like going, wait a minute, why is that working? Yeah, so, but the important thing to realize is that there's two levels. There's server side and there's client side, and the client side conditional style is done using, they're performed in the browser, and they should be performed immediately upon that. So you can, it basically allows you to say, as the person's doing their data entry, as things change, it's evaluated immediately on the client versus there. So not sure if, Sarah, if you see I missed something, let me know, but that should have worked. Oh, yeah. So, okay. But again, I apologize. I wasn't able to demonstrate that most effectively. I'll follow up and we'll get resolution on that from there. Excellent. One other quick trick. Once you've built all yours, you might have 3 or 4 conditions. If you go export, it gives you the textual version, so I can copy this, and then, or I can copy that and then import and paste it into another conditional cell, and it'll paste the exact same stuff. And so you don't have to actually manually build that.
Here's a question. Do you need a false condition? So city equals London turned it orange, sure, but city not equal orange.
Oh, geez. Okay. Boy, it takes a village, idiot, to be successful. And the answer is yes. I believe that's our magic right there.
And then what did you say for the background? Did you actually set a background style, which I think
I just let it be.
Background. I think you want to say background is none. No, I think you want to define in the thing itself. Yeah, not just say
we have
blank,
to set the background to be white.
Well, let's just say white. Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, which is sort of what I would consider to be the.
This can't possibly not work, right?
Yeah, I know.
All right.
I think it did. It knows it.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
But notice there's a problem when I'm there. So what we want to do is go into this and say if it's there, and then the background is white, that is black. Anyway, you play with it. And so, yeah, you have to have both conditions.
Yep.
So it works properly there.
You do have to say what happens when it isn't, yeah.
So let me do a full refresh. Okay, so I'm going to change this to Toronto. I'm going to exit out of it. There we go.
Okay.
Voila.
Nice.
So there was just a refresh time there. So that's the key between them is that, again, since I'm doing it conditional style in the client side, then the moment I change that, it's going to immediately render and I'll be able to do that right there. And again, these conditions right here, a couple things about them just there. You can, this tells you the syntax on it and how you use it, and very important, you're using like and or, not dot ands, dot ors like XBasic. The other thing is important is you can use JavaScript functions. So if you have something a bit more complex, you can literally have a JavaScript function that executes a whole bunch of JavaScript, does a bunch of stuff, and then returns the result as either a true or false. You're returning that from there. And this, by the way, will help. Let's go ahead and test. This will actually show you, this is an example of that function, how you can do it. So you can be looking at, and this is very cool, you could actually be looking at a whole other control on, say, a dialog object or things like that. So there's some really cool stuff. This is in a grid, obviously, but if you're on a UX, you could be looking at a whole bunch of other controls and then basically determining what this color should be. So there's some really fancy stuff you can do that with that capability there. And again, as I mentioned, I can now take this, copy it, and then open up a whole, go to another field, and then use the import function. And when I import it and paste it here, then this will become the new rule set for that there. So you don't have to go through and type and drop downs and all that other stuff. Saves you a lot of time and energy.
I'm cracking up looking through the comments because as we were puzzling it through, 4 different people were giving us the right answer.
I know.
Thank you, audience.
I think we need to say, raise your hand, and we're just going to toss the screen over to you.
I should have been more on the ball there. So. Yeah, but great, excellent. Well, thank you very much for answering.
Well, hey, remember we learned from failure, right?
And it's the right one. So we just.
Am I right? Do we learn from failure? Huh?
We do. Yeah, we do.
I spend a lot of time learning. I am a learning machine.
I see what you mean there. Yeah. Quick question. So between the two, you can set it client side, you could set it server side. Do they fight each other out if you set them both? Which one wins?
That's a good question. Well, on the client, the client's going to win, but then I think it gets reevaluated when it goes back to the server. Right. So you'll see, but it could override if you, you're right. Say it was orange on client, it was blue on the server. My guess is the blue will override, because once it does it, the server's going to say, hey, guess what? Here's what it's going to look like after I process my stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So pick one. Pick a lane.
Gotcha. Pick a lane. Stick in it. Yeah.
Pick a lane.
I believe that is it for questions.
Yes.
Is there anything else anyone would like to ask us? The questions window is open.
I know. Happy birthday, America.
There you go.
I think. Well, not happy birthday. Would that be considered a birthday, or is it just screw you, London? Or you think about it, every year we do 4th of July, doesn't it? Aren't you basically like kind of insulting Britain and the UK, saying, aha?
That's why we don't do these webinars on that week.
Yeah. And we have so many great developers in the UK and companies there. Yeah. Awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's my, I'm insulting people that we work with, so I better.
Right. Well, you know what? I think now's the time to cut you right off.
Yeah, I know. That's
Thank you very much for presenting today. Thank you for everyone who showed up and asked questions. If you have any more questions, go ahead and send them to guides, GUIDES, @alphasoftware.com, and we will be happy to get them to you. So we won't see you next week, but we hope to see you the week after. Take care. Have a great couple of weeks. Bye-bye.